What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my banner review and builds guide for Duo Lyon, Valentine Myrrh, Ephraim, Vigarde, and Selena. So let us start with the start of the banner in Duo Lyon, who's a Green Mage Cavalier with Tender Vessel as his preferred weapon. This gives him minus and special cooldown, and it also enables Canto 1, so he doesn't really have to run any kind of Fortress skill. And then at start of combat, if his HP is at or above 25%, then he's able to get the pre-combat damage if he can attack, and it is going to be giving you pre-combat damage based on 40% of foe's attack if you have the weapon triangle advantage or if you have got more resistance than the foe. And if you don't, then you're still going to be getting 20% of foe's attack as the pre-combat damage. So this is going to be giving Duo Lyon a lot of damage output, and we don't really have any kind of counter to the pre-combat damage, so everything is going to be running wild for a while until we get it. And then he's also able to get plus X to his attack, defense, and resistance in the combat, and this is going to be depending on 20% of his visible resistance added by 5. So he's able to get plus 14 to his attack, defense, and resistance, and then he also pierces through the damage reduction of the enemies by 50%. And this is really good because Cavaliers don't really have access to magical on follow-up, so the fact that he can pierce through the damage reduction just adds to his offensive prowess with the pre-combat damage that he can get out of the weapon. And he also has a Cultist Strike, so it is going to be stacking up the pre-combat damage, and it also gives him the true damage based on 20% of foe's resistance. Unfortunately, this is not going to be added for any kind of AoE special, and he does have amazing attack stat at base 47, which does have a super boon, and he also has 46 resistance with a super boon. And his resistance is going to be used here with his preferred slotted skill in Grey Illusion. So this is going to be giving him plus 9 attack, defense, and resistance, and it does have the resistance sweep built in, which allows the enemy to not have any kind of counter attack if Lyon has got more resistance than them. So it is going to be helping him as a nuke because not every kind of tank is going to be having null counter disrupt built in their weapon, like Winter Byleth for example, so it is going to be helping him in Aether Raids defense and also in Summoner Duels. And in the player phase, if he initiated combats, then he's able to inflict the foes with the highest speed stat within 3 spaces of the target foe with the end action status. So this is going to be ending their action after their at sort of turn skills have triggered, and in Summoner Duels this is going to be immediately ending the action. So this is a pretty insane status effect because ending the action is quite literally insane for a turn-based game like FEH. And if there are 2 foes with the same speed stat and they have the highest speed, then both of them are going to be getting affected by this status. So realistically, the chances of happening that is not really all that high, but still something to keep in mind. And then he also has his duo skill, which is going to be inflicting all of the foes in the cardinal direction of his with the end action status. And this is going to be much more oppressive in Summoner Duels because in Aether Raids offense, you're not going to be able to make use of the duo skill because of duo's hindrance, but in Summoner Duels, there's no such restriction. So you'll have to keep in mind and not have all of your units in a line. Otherwise, Duo Lyon is just going to be able to end the action of all of them, and then you're going to be losing most likely. So it is going to be depending on the map. If there is more of a diagonal map with the starting position, then Duo Lyon is not going to be getting as much leverage out of the skill. But as of making this video, the current Summoner Duels map that we have is really favored towards Lyon, and it does have a passage where you're going to be able to inflict all of the foes with the end action status. So Duo Lyon is definitely going to be a toxic unit, and because this is a duo skill, it is going to be acting as the dual score effect in Colosseum game modes, and it is going to be making him score like a 205 BST unit. He also comes with a new version of Insight skill and Insight attack resistance, so it is going to be giving him plus 6 attack and resistance buff, and also the Insighted status, which is basically going to be functioning as a clash skill and can give you plus 3 to all of your stats. And then if the number of adjacent allies is less than or equal to 1, then you're able to get plus 3 attack and resistance in the combat. So this is going to be helping him just stack up a lot of attack for nuking, and he already gets so much pre-combat damage that he's going to be functioning as an amazing nuke. And even if he gets some kind of pre-combat damage counter, he still has the resistance sweep in his Grey Illusion and also the end action status, which is going to be making him stand out, and it is going to be a strength of Lyon going forward, especially in Summoner Duels. And in Aether Raids defense, he's going to be a pretty popular cav unit that is going to be used on flyer lines and cav lines because he can just stack up the pre-combat damage and also allow the usage of dual hindrance structure, which is really great if you don't really have someone like Duo Sanaki to enable that. If you're going to be running Duo Lyon on a budget, then you can simply give him Stillwater Sacred Seal because his weapon does give him the stats based on his visible resistance, and stacking up the visible resistance is not the worst thing, especially if you run some other skills as you'll see in a moment. And then you can also run him with Fatal Smoke 4 so that you can ignore the miracle effects of Duo Ymir and also Fallen Maria, so it is going to be an option, especially for Aether Raids defense, where you could use him with Hardy Bearing so that you ignore any kind of Brave March with Null Counter Disrupt and no quarter set. So he can be a unit that you can use, and plus attack IV is also helpful in nuking as it is a super boon. And you can also run a ploy skill on him and even use him as an AoE nuke in something like Summoner Duels because you can easily make use of Duo Asker, and also Secret Maneuver skill is coming up in the Summoner Duels S. And you can also run Stillwater so that you can have better checks for the ploy skill and also get some extra true damage on your AoE attacks. Even though Lyon doesn't really get any kind of true damage to his AoE specials, it's still gonna be something he can easily make use of because he already gets a lot of pre-combat damage and his attack stat is quite high, so he can certainly AoE nuke. And then finally, if you're gonna be plus and merging him, then he could be used in arena with a build like this, and he can just ploy the enemies, disable their grand strategy and bonus doubler status, and do a lot of damage to them and also score as a 210 BST unit. Valentine Myrrh is a colorless armored dragon with Living Breath as her preferred weapon. This gives her minus on special cooldown, making Armored Beacon into a 2 cooldown special, and then she does have distant counter built in this weapon, so that does help her just equip other sacred seals that can give her the extra stats. And then if foe initiates combat, or if foe's HP is at or above 75%, then she can get plus X to attack in the combat, and inflicts minus X attack on the foe in the combat. So this is going to be dependent on the number of allies in 3 spaces of her, multiplied by 4 and then added by 6. And this can go all the way up to 14, which is quite a lot to get for your attack and also for debuffing the enemy's attack. She also gets special cooldown charge +1 on both enemies' attacks and her own attacks, so she can retaliate back with armored beacons, and then she also heals up 7 HP after the combat. She also has Dragon Wall effect built in the weapon, which does give her the AoE damage reduction as well, so that's a bit better, and she does have the adaptive damage like all of the other Dragon Breaths. So Myrrh is going to be functioning as a pretty amazing Far Savior because of her preferred slotsy skill in Darkling Dragon. So at start of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she can grant herself and the support partner, or if there's no support partner, then she's going to be giving it to the highest defense ally for 1 turn, the +6 defense and resistance buff, and the War Bubble status. So Legendary Myrrh's War Bubble is available here, and now it can be given to an ally, and if you use her with Citrine, then you can pretty much give it to all of your other allies, which is really good for Summoner Duels. And even if Myrrh herself goes down, you're still going to be having another ally who has got the War Bubble status, so it is going to be helping in something like Summoner Duels and even in Aether Raids defense. But because this is a status effect, it is not going to be active until your enemy phase starts. So a lot of teams with Winter Edelgard and a lot of turn 1 initiations can pretty much go through and teleport with their allies because War Bubble is not going to be immediately active, kinda like Gatekeeper's War Blocking. And because this is a status effect, it can always get erased by Duo Thor in Summoner Duels. So you'll have to keep that in mind. And then if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she's able to get the guard effect in the combat, and also she pierces through the damage reduction of the enemy by 50%. So this is really helpful because nukes nowadays have a lot of damage reduction. And then she has got attack, defense, and resistance far save built in the skill, so she's going to be able to far save really easily. And she does have the scout skill and also Canny Fighter as the slot B, which is basically the magical weaving fighter. And she is a 206 BST unit with a really min-max stat line with base 48 defense, base 45 resistance, and also base 50 HP, which does have a super boon. And a lot of times you can go with that HP super boon, and you can also go with resistance because it is going to be needed with the scout skill and also with the Dragon Wall effect of her weapon. So she's going to be able to function as one of the best far save tanks in the game along with Winter Violet in my opinion, and she's definitely going to be a really useful unit because of her utility of giving this War Bubble status to another ally. If you're going to be running Myrrh on a budget, then you can simply give her Defense Res Form 3 as a Sacred Seal so that she can get more bulk. And in Summoner Duels, you can definitely try and run her with Hardy Fighter because that is needed for the survival, and Aegis can be the special that you can run. And because of the special charges from her weapon, she's able to charge up Aegis for the follow-up attack of the enemy. And if you're going to be facing some kind of Brattle Catcher team, then the Scout skill is going to be helping you with the pre-charged specials. And you can run the Squad Ace BX Sacred Seal, which can give you more bulk. So plus HP Super Boon is going to be useful for Summoner Duels usage because pre-combat damage is quite wild and HP is needed for the survival, and she can also help you with the War Bubble status there. And if you are going to be using her in Arena, then she's going to be functioning as the highest scoring unit in the entire game as of making this video, but only if she runs Distant Counter Dragon Sacred Seal. So it's a bit redundant, but it is something that you can run on her at this kind of max investment if you're really going to be using her for that scoring, and she can score as a 220 BST unit. Valentine Ephraim is a Lance Armor with Righteous Lance as his preferred weapon. This gives him minus on special cooldown, which makes Armor Blaze into a 2 cooldown special, and he actually gives support to the allies in 3 spaces for +4 attack and defense in the combat, and they can also heal up 7 HP after their combat. So that's actually pretty good if you're going to be pairing him up with another unit like Winter Byleth for far saving, which is really good for the tanking. And then he can also inflict -X attack and defense debuff on the foe, and this is going to be depending on the number of allies in 3 spaces times 4, then added by 6. So it's kind of similar to Valentine Myrrh in that aspect, where the maximum attack debuff and defense debuff that he can do on the enemy is 14. He also gets 30% damage reduction in the combat on both the first attack and also on the second attack. So this is not just the first attack damage reduction. And he also gets the 7 HP healing after the combat, and he completely nullifies any kind of percentage based damage reduction skill of the enemies whenever he triggers his special. And oh boy, he's going to be triggering a lot of his specials because Sunlit Bangle D is his preferred slot B skill, which is able to give him the Null Guard effect, and it also has the dual phase Brave effect. So he's going to be able to do a lot of damage by triggering Armor Blaze on his Brave attack, then the foe can counter attack before he can attack. So it's basically kind of similar to Summer Ephraim, but it is not going to be used too much because here Valentine Ephraim is an armor unit and he's mostly going to be functioning as a near savior. You also get 7 HP healing in the combat per attack, which is good for having another form of healing, and then he can inflict -5 attack and defense debuff on the foe in the combat. So this is going to be stacking up really well with his weapon, and it is going to be making him as a bulky near savior, and he can even function as a far savior because he does have that resistance with a super boon. And Earthfire Boost 3 is the skill which he introduces, and this is the defense variant of Fire Flood Boost 3. So this is really good for giving you the guard in the combat, and it's much better than Sturdy Stance, which only gives you the guard effect. This actually gives you +5 HP, which is not only amazing for Pawns of Loki, but just for having more bulk. He does have amazing base 48 attack with his super boon, so with his brave attacks he's going to be hitting pretty hard, and functionally he's going to be kind of similar to Ninja Zalkias in a way, and he can function as a really good near savior. If he was green, that would have been even better because the main melee threat right now is Winter Edelgard, and you pretty much need your near savior in Aether Raids defense teams to function and repel Winter Edelgards, otherwise you're going to be having a hard time. He's able to do that quite well because of having the bulk and this kind of weapon, but if he was green that would have been even better in my opinion. So if you're going to be running him on a budget, then you can simply run him with attack defense form, and he already functions really well with his base kit. But if you want him to function by ignoring the visible buffs of the opponent, then close defense 4 is something that he can run on his slot A, and he can even function as a far savior, especially at max investment. And because he's an armor unit, he can score as a 215 BST unit by running Distant Counter Melee Sacred Seal. So this is something that could be done at max investment. Valentine Selena is a Red Mage Cavalier, and she's the 4-star focus of this banner, and she does come with Devoted Basket Plus as the inhittable weapon. So it is going to be giving you 30% of foes attack as the pre-combat damage if you have the weapon strangle advantage, or if you have more speed than the foe. And if you don't, then 15% of foes attack is going to be the pre-combat damage. You do get +5 attack and speed in the combat, and then you can get even more attack and speed in the combat depending on 15% of her visible speed stat. So she does have pretty high speed at base 46 with a super boon, and also base 45 attack with also a super boon. and she is going to be functioning as a really good offensive Red Mage Cavalier with this kind of pre-combat damage, and this is going to be a much better weapon than Arcane Eclipse for many of the Flyers and Cavaliers because they can just stack it up with Flared Sparrow and Occultist Strike and do a lot of damage. Selena herself does have attack speed catch 3 at 4-star and attack resistance Fortress at 5-star, and Rally Up Attack Plus is also something that she can provide. And if you want to run her on a budget, then you can simply give her Savage Blow 3 in her slot C, and then you can get the tier 4 version of the Cat skill from the Divine Codes, which is pretty easily available, and then you can run Glimmer as the special. Blade Session is going to be the Sacred Seal that you can run for getting the max offenses, and Plus Speed Ivy is the one that you can select. But if you're going to be investing even more into her, then you can also ascend her attack asset and run her with Speed Preempt. So this is something that you can do because of having the speed to do it, and because of the pre-combat damage, you're going to be able to Vantage really well with Speed Preempt, and Fatal Smoke 4 is going to be there to ignore any kind of miracle effects. So it can be a build that you can run, but ultimately you can always use her with Flared Sparrow and Occultist Strike for the pre-combat damage, and you can also use her with Emblem Heroes so that you can have minus some special cooldown. So in a way, it becomes a better arcane weapon, and Inside Attack Speed can also be run so that you can get extra offenses, and Fleeting Echo is pretty much the only attune skill that I would recommend, and even then Selena is really not going to be having the bulk to survive, but a lot of times with just the pre-combat damage, she's going to be able to secure the kill. And you can also run her with Speed Resistance Fortress 4, so now we do have the tier 4 version of this, and it is going to be giving you minimum Canto 1, which is good for retreating. Valentine Vigarde is the Grail unit out of this batch, and he's an Axe Armor this time, and he has got 200 BST, and he does come with Axe of Devotion, which is basically the inedible axe version of Selena's weapon but focused on defense. So it can give you that pre-combat damage if you have the triangle advantage or if you have more defense than the foe, and it also gives you extra attack and defense in the combat. So it's a pretty decent weapon, and again it can be useful on any kind of Cavalier or Flyer, but if it gave speed that would have been even better. We do have Arcane Thrima as a pretty solid arcane weapon, but still this is going to be a decent side grade for many of the units. And when it comes to his own stats, he's going to be facing competition from Murdoch, who does have a distant counter axe, and he's going to be able to function much better as a Far Savior compared to Vigarde. He's pretty much like a better Ludwig when it comes to the bulk, because he's a bit more min-max, but even then, he's going to be facing competition from Murdoch. There's also Flame Emperor, who recently got a weapon refine, so not a lot of reason to build up Vigarde because of not having a preferred weapon. But if you're a big fan of him and his art, then he can be used as a near savior. But if you just want to use him in Tempest Trial and use him as a bonus unit, then you can defense refine his weapon and run attack smoke in the slot C. And then Special Fighter can be the Sacred Seal of choice, which can give you the guard effect and also the special charges. And you can easily run him with Arcane Thrima so that you can get the sabotage effect on the enemy. You can also debuff the enemies and also get the full tempo effect. Now even though it does have the null follow-up based on the speed, it is still helpful for many of the slow units because of the full tempo effect. And the tempo effect along with Earth Fire boost does mean that if your enemy does not have null guard, then they're not charging their special. Vengeful Fighter 4 is also a pretty good slot B skill for getting even more attack debuff on the enemy, and it does give you the breath effect and also the guaranteed follow-up attack. So it is going to be the option that you can use with Arcane Thrima, and on a budget you can even run Sturdy Stance 3 to get the guard effect out of that. And if you do have access to another Valentine Ephraim, then this is the build you can run. And if you want to stick to his weapon, then he can function with Weaving Fighter because Armored Blaze can be a 2 cooldown special with Emblem Heroes that he can retaliate back with by running Special Fighter Sacred Seal. So with Weaving Fighter, he's going to be getting the healing and also a lot of damage reduction. And because of the pre-combat damage, he's going to be able to kill a lot of units by using Armored Blaze as his special. You can check out my review of the new weapon refines for this month by clicking the link on the screen, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes is about as functional as Arcane Eclipse after seeing Selena's weapon. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.